We're going to give just everyone a minute to join. In the meantime, if you want to come off mute quickly and say your name, say where you're calling in from today, the venture you're working on, and a fun fact about yourself. That would be a great way to get started. I'll start. I'm Rachel Brophy, Director of Programs here at Resolution. And a fun fact about me, Helen and I were just talking about this. I grew up in the lovely state of Maine and just came back for 3 weeks there. Felix, can I put you on the spot to introduce yourself next?
Yes, of course. Hello, everyone. My name is Felix Ferrandis. I'm the Senior Community Engagement Associate at Resolution Project. And a fun fact about me is that I am French, lived in Australia, Canada, and now the US. I'm very excited to see you all today. I'm going to pass it to our presenter today, Helen.
Hi, I'm Helen. Nice to meet you all. I am calling in from New York. And a fun fact, let's see. So we're talking about impact evaluation today, which is definitely part of my professional life, but in my personal life, I am a mom to 2 little girls who are 1 and 3. And so now that I have dropped them off at camp for the morning, now my day is calm. Well, the hardest part of my day is done. I don't know who wants to go next. Alan, you generously piped up to say hi, so I'm going to assume you're okay to say hi.
Sure, thank you, Helen. Hi, everyone. My name is Alan. I'm calling in from Rwanda, and I'm a Resolution Fellow. And fun fact, I went to school where Rachel is from, so Maine.
Well, in that case, Gift, as our other Bates alum, can I get you to intro yourself next?
I was gonna say my fun fact is I went to school with Alan. But hi everyone, my name is Gift Kitty. I'm from Kenya. I'm calling in from London, and my venture is Zawadi Healthcare Services, which is a health clinic on the outskirts of Mombasa. I'm looking forward to this session. And I'll pass it on to James, who's my other friend.
Thank you, Gift. My name is James Kuch. I'm from South Sudan, but I'm currently in Nairobi. My social enterprise is called Rainmaker Enterprise, and we work in agriculture as well as water provision for community health. Thank you. May I pass it on to Ibrahim?
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Ibrahim, and I'm originally from Ghana, and I'm calling in from Ghana. And I'm a co-founder for Cocoa Potash, which is about trying to recycle cocoa waste into commercially available potash and also potash fertilizer for local farmers. Thank you. So I'll pass it on to Tunde, if he's around, or Joy.
Hi everyone, my name is Joy Chukrir. I'm from Kenya. My venture is Mwangaza Cancer Initiative, which is focused on breast and cervical cancer education and screening. Fun fact, the only thing I can think of right now is 4 trips, all of which I have to fly in October and September, and I didn't foresee them coming. Nice to meet everyone.
Tunde, do you want to go ahead next?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. My name is Tunde Oyebamiji, and I'm a Resolution Fellow from Nigeria. I'm currently calling from Nigeria. My venture is Lend an Arm, which is trying to connect hospitals and patients to emergency services at the push of a button using a call center AI chatbots, and medium-range cargo drones. Thank you. I'm looking forward to the session. Thank you.
I guess I'll go. So my name is James Tayali. I'm from Malawi. Our venture scout Keke Mawe. I'm here with my co-founder. He will introduce himself. Our company that is producing digital products for women and children. A fun fact about me is that I speak about 5 languages, I think. So far, I'm learning another one. So yeah, I love languages. Thank you. I pass it on maybe to Bernard.
Hi, hi everyone. My name is Bernard Jerry. I'm from Malawi and currently in Malawi. As James said, with Keke Mawe. Fun fact about me is that I've been inside the Great Pyramid before. Thanks.
Daniel, I don't think I've heard your intro.
Yeah, my name is Daniel Sebugwao. I live in Boston and I'm a Resolution Fellow. My social venture is called SUBI, Community Development Organization. It helps women in rural communities in Uganda to start up small businesses, and we help them grow them to bigger businesses. Fun fact about me, I'm a very random person to a point that I forget a lot of things. And yeah, I guess that's it.
And Cyril, Chapter Global, have we heard from you?
Yes. I think I'll go now. I'm with my colleague here, so I'll just pass the baton to him right after this. So I am Cyril, one of the founders at Chapter. I'm from Nairobi, Kenya, based in Nairobi, Kenya. Right, what Chapter does is we allow students to learn now, pay later through income share agreements. So pay once you're earning. I think Jesse will just expound on anything more than that. About the fun fact. Yeah, fun fact is I believe that socks are your secret to success. So let's try to have a bit of color on what you are considering. Awesome.
Okay, thank you, Cyril. Trust everyone can hear me. My name is Jesse Karanja. I work with Cyril. I think that's a pretty good summary he's given of our company. Pretty much just trying to remove finance as a barrier to education for most young people in Africa. And I think a fun fact would be I'm a karaoke host on the side. So I think the next time we visit Nairobi or when we meet in Kigali, hopefully we can do that. Easy, thank you.
I never do that.
Fantastic. I think we heard from everyone. Oh, James, your fun fact. Fantastic. And you please do use the chat. It's a great opportunity to connect with one another. If I miss someone, please speak up now. My apologies, coffee hasn't fully hit yet. It's a little earlier in the US, I think, than for most of you. But I think we'll get started. So as many of you know, and for those that joined a little bit later, my name is Rachel Brophy. I'm the Director of Programs at Resolution and one of the facilitators for the Accelerating Impact Challenge. I'm very excited for today's webinar. Each webinar is set up to prepare you to pitch in person for funders. So we encourage you to ask questions and participate as much as possible. Today we're joined by Helen Goldberg, who'll talk about impact evaluation. So Helen, I'm going to turn it over to you. Somali, if you can start sharing the screen and the PowerPoint. And again, please use that chat function. I'm really excited for this.
Thanks, Rachel. And nice to meet all of you. I'm Helen Goldberg. And first of all, it's really fun to hear about all your ventures, really fun to hear all your fun facts for sure, but really fun to hear about all of your ventures. And I so admire all of the work that you do. Congratulations on this opportunity to pitch with the MasterCard Group. I have been working with philanthropic funders for the past 12 years or so in a couple of different roles. So I've done that as a consultant to big foundations. I now work for a foundation. Despite the topic today, I am not a technical expert in impact evaluation, but what I can tell you about is my experience about what funders are looking for from those seeking funding related to impact evaluation. And the bottom line is, of course, it depends, but there are some things that often they will expect sort of no matter what. So I think that's where we're going to focus. And, you know, feel free to come off mute or use the chat whenever. And yeah, we can make this, this doesn't need to be a super formal presentation. This can be a conversation. So first thing, when I say impact evaluation, what's the first thing you think of? It can be one word, it can be one phrase, put it in the chat. What do you think of when I say impact evaluation? Numbers. Yep. Value addition. James, I see your hand up. Feel free to just come off mute.
Yeah, I just wanted to say how many people or businesses that your business is impacting or reaching, and what is the value that it is creating for them.
Yep. Scope, reach, value that you're creating for the people you work for and with. Positive difference, community change. So feel free to keep adding. I think these are great because I'm hearing two of the sort of biggest components, and sometimes we forget that impact evaluation is a lot of things, but I'm hearing two of the biggest components, one of which is scope and reach. So how many people are you reaching? And you know, I see a lot of different references to numbers here. And another is, so what are you doing for them? What is the impact? What is it changing? You know, what about your venture is changing people's lives or changing their circumstances or communities? So we can get more into sort of a range of different examples. I will say one thing that I didn't see here is sort of stories or quantitative impact. And while I think the first association with impact evaluation is often numbers and data, I would encourage everyone to remember that anecdotes and stories of impact are also data. And so pairing them with numbers can be really powerful when you're talking to funders. Would you mind going to the next slide, Molly? So what is impact evaluation? The definition I use is that impact evaluation is a set of processes, and they are processes that help you understand what changes can be attributed to the work that you're doing. Sometimes we also talk about impact evaluation to understand what changes you are contributing to that are broader. And what I mean by that is if your program is directly causing a change, you are directly delivering a service. So the change that you have delivered is that service or the materials you're delivering. We say attribute. If you are part of a larger group or part of a larger, longer term effort that's creating change, often, for example, advocacy efforts fall in this bucket, we usually use the word contribute instead of attribute. And some of the things that we use impact evaluation to do is to determine the return on investment of a program. And return on investment, I'll just break that down into two things because it's both return side. So what are the results? What are the changes that your intervention is creating? And the investment, how much does it cost? Because oftentimes both you as the person running the venture and the funder is going to want to know, is this intervention having an impact? And is it having an impact in the most efficient way? Or is there another cheaper way to provide the same or even better services? So that's why, you know, ROI is the first one. The next is informing future strategy and priorities. Ideally, impact evaluation is helping you think about how you are going to be running your program in the future. Most of the time, I think we automatically assume that impact evaluation is something that others use to assess us, but it should really be, again, a tool for learning and adapting. It should be a way that we are taking in data about what is working and isn't in order to regularly question and adapt our work, and figure out what about our programs are working and for whom. Are there things that we should be doing more of? Are there things we should be doing less of? Have we found that particular venture only works in one population, and so we should really focus with that population, or we should change the venture so that it works more broadly for a broader population, for example. And then last is reporting and sharing results, and that can be with funders. It should also ideally be with members of your team and with community members. All of them are kind of stakeholders in the work that you're doing, and they should be a part of helping you understand, interpret, and make sense of what you're finding about your work. Maybe I'll go to the next slide, and then we can sort of pause and talk about any questions or thoughts. So what are funders looking for? I said this at the top, it really varies. And I think what an important question to ask of any funder that you're intending to partner with is what are they looking for with regards to impact evaluation? Feel free to ask that question. It is a smart and reasonable question to ask. And if they can't answer it clearly, I mean, that'll tell you something. I think generally speaking, philanthropists and public sector funders are all going to want to know that you can clearly and succinctly communicate what I call your impact model. And that is an answer to a series of questions, including what need or opportunity does your work address? What's the desired impact? What's your approach for achieving impact? And we'll go back, we'll break this down in a minute. What are your current programs? What's the scale or scope of your work? How do you define and measure impact? And what has been your impact to date? So, and Small, I can't remember, do we have a slide that has these questions on it? No, we don't. Okay, so I'm going to actually just drop them into the chat so you all have them. And we can talk about them in more detail. So your impact model includes and goes beyond impact evaluation, but impact evaluation will often be the opening for a conversation with a funder about what your impact model is. This is really about your ability to clearly describe your purpose and how you know you're achieving it. So you want to be able to say pretty clearly what the problem is that you're trying to address and how your particular approach, be that training, finance, technology, delivering material goods, advocacy, how and why that's the right approach for addressing that. And then more specifically, what are the programs that you have within that contribute to change? You'll want to be able to talk about how you prioritize, what the metrics you use to measure your impact. Being able to explain the metrics that you use will indicate to the funder that you have clarity about what your model is. And you can see on this slide here that there's a sense that funders are moving towards a new model of thinking about an impact evaluation. And an older model was about the funder really dictating. Now funders are looking to you to dictate most of the time what metrics you're reporting on. In most ways, this is a great thing. In some ways, it's more pressure because you have to select the metrics that are going to be most meaningful for your program. And then you need to justify that those are the ones that are most meaningful for showing change. Often those, you see I have listed here in the chat, you'll have just a few priority metrics, maybe no more than 3. Often at least one of them is going to be about the scope or scale, the reach of your program, so the number of people you're impacting. But the other 2 should really be more about impact. So less about how many units and more about what kinds of change and how much change. I'm going to pause there because I know it's all kind of conceptual. Do people have thoughts or questions?
Helen, I have a question about your last statement.
Mm-hmm.
Can you expound on that? Like you said less about numbers, but more about what kinds of change?
Yeah, so it's a little, I'm going to make up an example because I think it becomes more concrete if we have an actual example. And I should say it is, I misspoke when you're right. I shouldn't have said less about numbers. It can be numbers, but it's less about just reach. So let's say that my venture is a tutoring program. It tutors kids after school to improve their ability to pass math tests. Very simple. So the need or opportunity that I'm addressing is that kids aren't passing math tests and they're not understanding math concepts. And my desired impact is that kids have a better understanding of math concepts that they're able to apply in school settings and beyond. And now the priority metrics that I'm going to track, one of those is probably the number of kids I'm serving. That's probably the first one. And that is the scale or scope or reach of my program. And that's an important one to know because it gives you a sense of both the scale of your work, but also a sense of efficiency. It's the I side of ROI. But my other two metrics should really be more about the degree or amount or type of change that I'm creating. So my other two metrics are probably going to be something like the rate at which participants in my program are passing their math tests after participating in my program. Or maybe it's the percentage of them who say they feel more confident about their knowledge of math concepts in survey results after participating in my program. What wouldn't be helpful is three metrics that were about scale and reach. And so three metrics that would be about scale and reach are the number of students in my program, the number of times I meet with them a week, and I don't know, the length of sessions. That's probably too much on that side. And then it doesn't tell me at all about the results. I guess what I mean to say is of those three, you want to make sure that at least two tell you about the results. And also, three is a little bit of an arbitrary number. Maybe it's 4, maybe it's 2. It shouldn't be 50. You may have 50 things that you track on the side, but that's too many to have a conversation with about outside stakeholders. So you really need to decide what are the fill in the blank small number that you're using on a regular basis, tracking with your team on a regular basis, and really looking at to make decisions about running your program and setting priorities and where you're going to invest your time and your effort, and that you then use to communicate externally. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Alan, I see you have a hand up. Alan, are you on mute?
Alan, we can't hear you if you're talking. Do you want to go ahead and drop something in the chat, maybe?
Yeah. Can you also talk a little bit about balancing sort of funder expectations in terms. Can you guys hear me? Mute actually.
The connection's not very good. Would you mind typing?
Alan, it was coming in and out, so if you could drop it in the chat, that'd be super helpful.
Just while Alan's typing, I will say answering this set of questions, which I call impact model. I've heard of other names for it, but I think it's generally, what are you trying to do? How are you trying to do it? How do you know it's working? If you're going to do sort of like one thing from a strategy perspective in your venture, this is what I would do, which is answer these questions and make sure you as a team are all aligned on the answers to it and clear about it. and then able to communicate that in like 2 minutes, you know, like what's the short version, communicating it short and sweet. That will then serve you sort of in many different settings in communicating with funders, but also in communicating with your team members and deciding what to prioritize in telling community members about what your project is and thinking about partners. I think this is really like so foundational. And before I would think about some big data metrics, impact evaluation package, I would say, like, I would encourage you to focus on this. Maybe while we're waiting for Alan's question, we'll talk a little bit about this next topic.
Hi,
And we can,
hi,
oh,
Emma. Can you guys
hi.
hear me now?
Oh, yes,
Oh,
yes,
hi.
that's
Okay.
better.
All right, great. Yeah, my question was, could you touch a little bit more on how to balance funders and, you know, stakeholder expectations when it comes to metrics and measuring impact versus organizational priorities, or if the organization and the funders want to track or value two different metrics, how can we align with them, or how do we streamline that process? For example, if I care about maybe, you know, someone's story, being able to, even if it's one person, but their funder cares about maybe 100 people being able to be in the program, how do we streamline and balance that? If you could touch on that, that would be great.
Yeah, it is a really complicated and nuanced question that doesn't have a clean and clear answer. There's no magic wand. I will say, to the specific example you gave, what if the funder cares about 100 people and I care about one? In an ideal world, you have data that tells the story of 100 and tells the story of one. And what I mean by that is what I said at the outset, which is data should include numbers, the big numbers, you know, the total number of people you're reaching, and data should include the story of the individual who participated in your venture and whose life was impacted. Both of those pieces of data should be available to you, the story and the number, and you should be able to pull those out for their different uses. Now, if you more generally, as an organization, have a set of things that you measure and care about and that are helpful for you in making decisions and to communicate with your stakeholders, and then the funder has a whole separate set, I think that's a conversation. It may be that maybe they started with a list and they're interested and open to seeing that list change based on your sort of reasoning for why your list of metrics is the most relevant one. Maybe there's one or two on their list that's actually you hadn't thought of, that's actually helpful. And so maybe that can be a conversation and a bit of a negotiation. Maybe there's one thing that you add. If they truly demand some long, complicated set of evaluation or metrics that's really different from what you're doing, I would say either they need to cover your costs to measure that. So often funders that have really strict and inflexible evaluation requirements will include a portion of a grant that's for evaluation, and that's what you should use it for. If they don't offer that, I would ask for it. And if they still don't, and they say you need to do this thing that you know is going to cost you a couple $1,000s to do because you're not doing it otherwise and it's not valuable to you otherwise, and they won't cover that cost, I would really think about whether that money is worth it to take. You can say no to accepting money from funders if it's not going to serve your organization.
Thank you. I like the last part. Saying no to funders.
If you could go back a little just to this slide. So evaluation is changing as a field. It's changing pretty quickly, and that's good news. So I think even 10 or 12 years ago, when I started in philanthropy, evaluation was really seen as a tool for proving or for accountability. It was like a compliance tool. It almost felt like, like punishment sometimes. It was something that you had to do to prove that you were worthy in some ways. And I mean, to the point, Alan, that you were making, it was mostly funders dictating metrics. You got these very complicated guidebooks. I mean, even some of the materials that those kind of overview of impact evaluation materials that Rachel and I worked on for Resolution Project maybe 7 or 8 years ago are still kind of in this old model. And sometimes that serves you, but if it doesn't serve you, the good news is that the field is moving much more towards evaluation as a tool for learning. And part of that is saying, let's not just collect a million reams of data for data's sake. That's a distraction from the core business of the venture. Instead, we need to identify what's the data that's really useful in telling us about the impact of our program, the efficiency of our program, who it's serving well and whom, and how should we adapt? Like, you know, answering those kind of 4 questions at the top. There is a lot less of a focus on doing a whole kind of multi-year evaluation at the end of something to see whether it was impactful, and more on sort of ongoing data collection and ongoing adjustments. Yes, that's maybe less scientific, but what it gets you is the ability to adjust in real time. That's an ability to adapt and be responsive to changes, and particularly our wildly changing context that we've all been in the past few years, is something that a lot of funders look for, because it shows strong leadership. And then this last one, Alan, this is what we're also talking about, and this is more of a world in which the organization is setting the desired outcomes, bonus points if there's community member input as part of that, and that those desired outcomes need to align to those questions that we talked about earlier in your impact model. All of that needs to sort of clearly tie together. Rachel, if you want to go to the next slide. So the next, if everyone wants to indulge me and just put something in the chat, I'm curious what you wish funders understood about your work and impact. What do you think they don't understand, or you wish you could tell them, but you know, haven't always been able to? Real impact takes time to show. That's a great point. Every penny goes a long way. So I'll take each of those a little bit. So real impact takes time to show. I think that's totally true. And I'm sure you're already doing this without maybe even naming it, but if there are ways that you can show progress towards that real impact, that counts too. So, you know, in my earlier silly example of my math tutoring program, if my end goal is really that everyone in the community understands math concepts, like that takes years, right? But if I'm able to show that the first 5 kids who participated in my pilot passed their math tests more, that's progress towards my goal, and that counts. Every penny goes a long way. Importance of qualitative aspects of impact and measurement. Yes, I completely agree with that. I mean, you've heard me saying it. And I think the good news is that more and more funders are starting to see that too, because they recognize that seeing just numbers, seeing that just 100 kids were in my math program doesn't tell them as much as the one student who built confidence and is now herself becoming a math tutor. Saving just one life is great progress. Totally. I think this also relates to the earlier question about funder priorities, then if they want to know about the 100 and you tell about the one. Some funders are only going to care about scale, and they may not be the right funders for you. And that's okay. There are funders out there who care about depth. And it does put the impetus on you to communicate why depth of impact is important. And a lot of times you communicate that through individual stories. If your venture is about sort of light impact on many, many people, you tell a number through big number. You tell a story through big numbers. If your impact is a deep impact on a small number of people, you tell that through stories. So I have one last slide I want to talk about, and then I will stop talking. And that is more specifically different types of funders. This, I will say, is these are really broad generalizations. each funder, as I mentioned, you should probably open your conversations with funders with asking them about what their expectations are, what they measure, what counts as success for them. But generally speaking, government funders tend to still be in that old model that we were talking about. They tend to be compliance oriented. They're going to want to look at outputs because they have to sort of ensure efficiency. They're going to want to look at, did you produce the number of units that you said you were going to produce? They want to see things that look basically contract-like. Corporate funders generally care about scale. So they're going to want to say, our funding impacted 10,000 people. They are probably, with some exceptions, but generally speaking, corporate funders are going to be better matches for ventures that are touching many people but lightly. And then here, collateral, they're often going to want things like photos and video and things like that they can put in their own content to make the case to their leadership and their employees and their customers that by funding you, they're doing good. Institutional funders, these are private foundations with staffs, often have their own longer term strategies, and they're going to want to see that your work contributes to their longer term strategies as well as to their learning about the field. So if, for example, to take my math tutoring venture idea, if they have a strategy that is all about building confidence in math, then they're going to want to make sure that, then you're going to want to make sure that the venture, or I'm going to want to make sure that my venture is measuring something about confidence and feelings towards math, as opposed to just % of math tests passed. And the last is families and foundations and family foundations. Here you get more into personal relationships. So often you'll see that the funder is interested in building a relationship with you as the leader and seeing your kind of thought processes, how you build relationships in the community, how you make decisions, how you prioritize, how you adapt. And that's all I got. I see a couple of other comments on what you want funders to know. So social ventures have a thin line between business and charity. It's important to understand both sides. Absolutely. If you are a social venture and your impact is on both I should say results are on both the impact and the financial side, your metrics should reflect that. And you should be able to communicate when you're prioritizing one over the other and why. Impact is multifaceted. Sometimes it's just feeding one household and seeing them survive difficult circumstances, and sometimes it's about a whole community being served. Absolutely. Again, it's that pairing of the big numbers with the stories, I think is the best I know. Do that. Questions, thoughts?
I have a question on the last slide. This is actually very good information to know that, different funders fall in different categories and care about different, they have different goals and drive. But when you're going to meet a funder, is it appropriate to ask them like what category they care about more, or even ask them what their goals strategies are, or do you just like do your background check and not necessarily ask the funder directly?
I mean, it's always good to do your research before. So if they have a page on their website that says it, then I would start there. And then I would use that as the starting point for a conversation. I think it's great to have a conversation. So if I went into a meeting with a funder with my math venture, I would look on their website and I could see on their website that they care about, like I said, confidence in math. So in that conversation with a funder, I would say, thank you so much for meeting with me. Here is my impact model. And I would describe all those questions. As part of that, I would say, we measure two kinds of impact. We measure, math comprehension based on passing of tests. And then we also measure confidence in math based on pre and post surveys that we do I saw on your website that you really focus on math confidence. Can you tell me a little bit more about your priorities there, or how you think about that, how you approach that, how that aligns with what I just described or doesn't, or what are other things you're funding, measuring when it relates to math confidence? This is a place like a job interview where when you can make it a conversation, it's a powerful relationship builder and does increase your chances.
Thank you.
Gift and then Daniel.
Mine is a clarification, and maybe Rachel might be better placed to do it. I know this session is supposed to help us, beyond the AIC, but specifically for the AIC challenge. Are you able to speak more about the kind of funder or funders we are looking at? Is it specifically just MasterCard, or are there other funders to be expected as well? Thanks.
Yeah, I'll tag in Felix on this one as well. I do know where there's a number of different funders. So I think in terms of the 4 funding groups that Helen was talking about, family foundations, I think are a big piece of what we're looking at for AIC funders. Felix, you know a little bit more about the conversations happening. I know they're still under development, but do you want to speak a little bit more to where those funders or potential funders fit within those 4 categories?
Yes, I can talk a little bit about that. I think our goal is to bring a breadth of different funders to the table. So whether it's some that might be able to do more impact investment, some of them might be more focused on grants. So they are on different scales. Some of them have very narrow focus on specific issue areas, on specific countries. Some of them have a broader scope and are kind of targeting any geographies, any kind of population. So you can expect to have very different funders around the table, and each of them, and part of the process of the AIC is going to get to know them and find out on your own what is going to be the most appealing piece of information to share with them. The short answer is it will very much depend. And we're really hoping to bring different kind of funders to the table so that you can get experience discussing and appealing to all of them. I know it's not a particularly satisfying answer. I apologize.
No, thank you. And Gift, I'll just jump in with a tiny bit more. When we do have a sense of exactly who will be there, we will be sharing that. So you can do that research that Helen was alluding to. You won't be walking in completely cold. We'll make sure that you have as much preparation time as possible.
I see a question from James. How do you align community expectations of what impact should mean with the expectations needed by a funder when both sides are crucial for the venture? This is where your leadership comes in my opinion. You are the leader of the venture. And so you ultimately need to decide what are the things that you're going to measure and how you're going to use that data to make decisions, to drive priorities, to communicate externally, all the things. So if it were me, I would get input from the community, and I would get input from my team, and I would get input from my partners, and I would get input from my funders. And then I would sit down either alone or with my team, depending on how you're structured, and say, what of this information do we really think is our top priority? What of this information would influence our decision-making? You want to make sure that any piece of data you're collecting has a purpose. Often that purpose is a decision. So think about what decision points you have. Often decision points are things like where to put resources, where to put your time, where to put your effort, or who to include in the program, things like that. So what pieces of data would influence your decisions? And ultimately, it's going to be a series of kind of negotiations and compromises. I mean, in my example before, maybe I actually really only care about math comprehension, but I recognize that other stakeholders, be they funders or community members, also care about math confidence. And because a venture is never just me, I've got to make sure that I'm being responsive to what those other stakeholders want. And so I'm including that as well, in addition to the thing that I think is important as the leader. But yeah, don't be afraid of your own leadership. Embrace it.
Okay, thanks. That's a good, good answer and good insight for me. Yeah, sure.
How does impact evaluation vary when dealing with grants versus impact investors? So I'm not an impact investor, never have been. So just to clarify, but I will say generally speaking, with impact investments, you end up having to do kind of double work, because you need to communicate about the impact that you're generating and about the revenue and ideally profit that you're generating. And so you can see my comment a little higher up. In addition to communicating the scale and reach, so the outputs and the impact, so whatever your priority metrics are, in my case, math comprehension and math confidence, I'm also then going to need to be able to communicate my business model or my revenue model. How am I making money? Something about my cost structure, and evidence of customer interest usually. And that's that last piece. They want to show that you're creating something that there's demand for. So generally, in let's say my tutoring example were a tutoring business, I would need to be able to show that my business model is charging, let's say I'm charging, I don't want to charge families. What am I going to do? I'm going to charge schools. I'm charging schools here. The schools are the ones who are not succeeding in teaching kids math, so I'm going to charge the schools. And so that's my model, that for every math test that a student passes after participating in my program, I get paid a fee. So I have to communicate about that. I have to communicate then about my cost structure. So my biggest costs are paying tutors. And then I also have to pay some costs for marketing and some costs for space. And overall, then my projected profit. So what is the difference between the revenue and the expenses? And then the evidence of customer interest. So I need to, in this example, show interest both from students or their parents who are going to participate in my math program, but also from the payers, from the schools. So I need to show that I have talked to 5 schools. 1 has actually signed a contract, 2 are interested in having further meetings, and they all think and they all are willing to be references. And again, this is the side of impact evaluation that's more for pitching in this context.
Thank you.
Danielle, I see your hand raised. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question that aligns with actually one of the previous questions. It's also regarding funders' expectations. I'm speaking from experience where you get a funder, you know their expectation, they know your expectations as well, and then you hit the road running, and then after doing an evaluation, they want to make recommendations, and you find out that some of the recommendations kind of get you off the vision and the plan. Like if your math, venture, like they say, okay, now we realize we need to add an English subject for tutor as well, but that's not what you want. That's not anywhere in your vision. So how do you go about something like that?
I love this question because I think it's so real. So the answer to this is the same as my answer to James earlier, which is this is where your leadership comes in. So if it's me, I listen to all of the inputs from all of my stakeholders. Funders are one of my stakeholders, right? So I want to know what they have to say in the same way that I want to know what community members and partners and my team all have to say. And then I'm the leader, so it's my decision. And ultimately, I may say, I think there's something there that's interesting about this English thing. Maybe I'm willing to pilot it with a small group if this funder is going to fully cover my costs of the pilot. And then I put it to the funder in that way. Or maybe I say, nope, actually what I'm about is math. And I want to go deeper into math and actually help students achieve even deeper outcomes in math. Or I want to go broader into math. I want to work with kids starting even earlier and going even older, but just on math, because that's what this community needs, because I am closer to it and I am the on-the-ground expert. And given my expertise, that's what I say is right. So I think this is, again, a place where you gather your inputs, and feedback from your different stakeholders are important inputs. And ultimately, you have to decide what's the right thing to do. I think that's what a big part of being a leader is.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions? People can come off mute or use the chat. I just want to say a huge thank you to Helen for today's session. I know I learned a lot. We'll be providing a recording of these sessions, so be sure to look out for that. If questions come up, you're thinking about what you've heard today and you have some more questions, there are two options for you. One, you can reach out to the AICresolutionproject.org email. You've been receiving a lot of correspondence from that email, and we'll be happy to answer anything we can there. And you also have the office hours. So a reminder, the sign up is still open. If you're matched, please sign up. If you want to be matched with a subject matter expert, so that can be something on impact evaluation, marketing and communications, which I know you worked on with Liz earlier this week, or any other topic, make sure to sign up for those office hours. That's a really great opportunity to work one-on-one with a subject matter expert. So you can sign up by Friday. And if you've already signed up, you'll be receiving calendar invites based on your availability and the topic discussed. And we'll be sharing that recording, some major takeaways from this. And again, reach out with questions, and a huge thank you to Helen.
My pleasure. Thank you all. Thanks for good questions. Thanks for pushing me. And I will, not that I have any business assigning you all homework, but to the extent I can assign you all homework, I'd encourage all of you to sit down by yourself or with your partner team and write down your answers to the impact model questions. If you've got real clarity about that, hopefully everything else kind of flows from there. And best of luck at the event. Oh, do I see one more hand up? Is there one more question, James?
Yeah, so just to say thank you, Helen, for the time and for the insights on impact evaluation. It was really helpful. And then to Rachel, great to see you, Rachel. And I just wanted to actually ask like a little bit more specific about what we are going to expect in Rwanda at the event. Do you have like potential like funders, or you have some potential funders that are already confirmed, and what should we expect as we design our impact models and other aspects of the presentations that will be given?
Yeah, we are still working on confirming our funders. We have a number of soft yeses that we're confirming to hard. So as I shared before, we'll try to share that as soon as humanly possible, so you can do all the research and preparation for that, as well as all of the schedule and what to expect. Things are still in motion with the MasterCard Foundation's summit schedule, unfortunately, and we're subject to some of their changes. So I know it's been a little bit challenging and you don't have that information. Unfortunately, I don't have that information either. But as soon as we have it, I promise we'll be sharing that with you all.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Be well, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I love the team here already, and I think we'll all learn from each other as well when we're there as well. So thank you, guys.